What's going on, guys? Army-Firedawg is back again. How have y'all been? Today I have actually a comparison video between 3 different cables, and that is Effects Audio brand new Vogue line, and that is of course the Maestro, Virtuoso, and Grandioso. That is a copper, silver, and a copper-silver mesh cable, and I've enjoyed my week with it, and I'm really excited to kind of portray what my thoughts and what my ears have heard, so that maybe if you are looking for a cable yourself, you can kind of know which route to go if you're looking for the price point that the Maestro, Virtuoso, and Grandioso go for, which is $1, $150, and $2, respectively. But without further ado, let's just jump into this review, or comparison review, and let's just share my opinion, shall we? Alright, so here we have the Maestro copper cable, which goes for, like I said, $100. The Virtuoso, which is their all-silver cable, for $150. And the flagship of the Vogue line, the Grandioso, which is $200, and is, like I said, a copper-silver mesh. So, let's start with the Maestro, and then work our way up from there. Now, before I go into the actual review, I'll go ahead and cover the unboxing, because unboxing is similar between all of these. So, the box is as simplistic and basic as what you'd want it to be. All it shows is the Effect Audio label on the front, the Vogue line in the background, with a sticker on the front that says the product name, the connection type, and the termination type that you have chosen. Again, you have the different options to choose on your product page when you're purchasing it. The Effect Audio's name and logo, and then their motto, which is sound design and perfection. Now, I do wish, the only thing I don't like about this unboxing, because yes, it's a very simplistic and there's kind of straightforward box. It's just a box with cable inside of it. And it's just a cable, so you can't really go too fancy, and you don't need to. Let the product speak for itself, which is why I have great respect for Effect Audio, because they do that exact thing. But like I said, I do have a fairly strong aggravation with this, is there is no lip to remove the suction. Like when you pull this thing closed, that air suction in there kind of takes... As you can see, there we go. A little bit to actually get that to come out sometimes. Now, if you permanently have this on an IEM and you carry the cable with an IEM case, for this example, I just so happen to have the KN's YB04, and you have a very nice box with plenty of room. But if you're traveling with just the box and you put the IEM in this box itself, well, as you can see, opening it can be a little bit of a pain. The construction, like I said, I'll just start on the Maestro because they are all the same construction. Only thing different is the material. All cables use a 4-braid design, which means there's 4 cables that splits at the branded split cable here into two wires. You do have, when you purchase them, you have technically 3 separate designs you can choose from. The ones they sent me is just the traditional 2-pin CIM or IM design. You can also select the flat, or you can get the like Shure and Westtone's MMCX connection, which is the circular you just snap in and it can twist. On the bottom end, you have, just like the front, an aluminum casing here. But what this is it's actually not only a very design friendly, it just looks really nice. It also gives you, as you can see here, a beveled edge that allows you to actually be able to grab it and pull it so you can not damage the cable. Try to never pull from the cable, please. But as you can see, you have 3 different termination types. The one, as you can see here, is the 2.5mm balanced connection. You have the 3.5mm unbalanced and the 4.4mm Pentacon connection that is balanced. Now, what I personally like, staying on the construction right quick, is that, as you can very clearly see, this is a beautifully braided design. I personally am a huge advocate. I just love the appearance of a braided design. However, like just about all braided cable designs versus its tubular rival, the braided design is fairly prone to tangling. This thing tangles quite a bit, and when it does, you actually have to kind of, oh shit, there we go, work to get it untangled. It don't just flap down. You actually have to manually pull it apart, which isn't a big deal. It really is not. It's just compared to the tubular designs, where you just kind of quote-unquote flick them, and they'll generally come out straight. Not the case with a braided cable. I'm not sure what the key difference is between them that causes this. Just about every braided design I come across has the entanglement problem. But on a personal note, I just love the beauty of a braided cable such as this, so on a personal note, I will always advocate for braided. This is just a gorgeous design. Now, moving on to the actual sound, which is, probably what y'all care the most about. So how do the individual cables sound? Again, starting with the Maestro. So the Maestro is the all-copper design. So with an all-copper design, as expected, it's going to have a more boosted or more forward bass and mid-range, and which is arguably, or admittedly rather, the sound I personally prefer. I enjoy that musical sound, the just that warmth that comes from copper cables, or a bass to mid-range focused sound, which is traditionally what copper cables provide. Now, for the course of this review, my direct comparison was the Cayenne's YB04 and their silver copper mesh cable. Additionally, I also used my Empire Ears Hermes 6 IEMs, which by default came with a BTG Audio Starlight cable, which is an all silver cable. And I also have the Effect Audio Aries 2 cable, which I will directly compare each cable to each individual counterpart, including the Aries 2 and the Maestro especially. So that is my reference point for the sound. Now, getting back on track, the all-copper design of the Maestro definitely improved on the bass, the overall bass performance of the YB04, and by adding a nice amount of oomph while also accenting the already full mids. The Maestros did nothing but accent that already beautiful sound. Treble, however, is notably reduced compared to its stock mesh cable, but that is to be expected with the removal of the silver component that Cayenne used in its silver copper mesh cable. Now, this is just a personal opinion, but for what Effect Audio is asking for, which is $100 for the Maestro cable, I really do think this gives a very nice nod to musicality that will either accent the IEM's already musical sound or potentially tone down a little bit of unwanted brightness that may exist in an IEM. There are several IEMs that are super comfortable. They sound great. They're just a little bit too bright. They have a little bit of a too high of a treble peak that if you would just tone that down some, it'd be perfect. And an all-copper cable such as the Maestro, I think, in my personal opinion, would do exactly what it is you're looking to do if you're not looking to spend an arm and a leg. Like I said, roughly $100, subjectively speaking, is really reasonably priced for the quality that you do get. Now, to compare the Maestro with its direct asking on the Maestro page, it directly references its Aries 2 cable. So on the website of the Maestro, it directly references that the Maestro sound evolved from the Aries 2 cable, which is very interesting because the Aries 2 is $150, whereas the Maestro is only $100. Now, I really truly thought that this was going to be a little bit of a longer comparison than what it was, but it was actually very straightforward. The overall sound is remarkably similar between the two. The main takeaway to me and what my ears got is that the Maestro has a slightly deeper bass response than that of the Aries 2. The main difference between physical-wise is that, as you can see, the Aries 2 uses quite a bit more premium, at least looking. They're both aluminum, but it looks more premium than that of the Maestro counterpart. The termination ends, however, are exactly the same. Now, exactly the same minus, and you can't see it on the camera, but the Maestro actually added an L and an R on their ends, whereas the Aries 2, there is nothing. There's not a red dot, blue dot, L, R, nothing. So it is a total 100% guessing game as to which one's left and right. which several times when I have to interchange IMs, I have to play a LR channel sound so I can figure out if I have the right plugged in or not. But that's really about the only difference between these two cables. Moving on up the lineup to the Virtuoso, and like you can see, the Virtuoso is an all silver cable. And with that, it's actually very attractive looking. Like, it's just a very beautiful looking cable and can easily be taken as a piece of jewelry. Everything else about this design is the exact same as the Maestro and the Grandioso, so I can skip all the construction part. But diving straight into the sound, the Virtuoso is inspired by the very successful Thor model that Effect Audio released. I guess they discontinued rather a few years ago. I think 3 years ago is when they discontinued it. And to my ears, it is an incredibly revealing cable that does a very surprising job when considering and taking into respect its $150 asking price at accenting the musical piece you're listening to's micro details. For example, in the song Glassy Sky by Donna Burke, the shaker that's played throughout the entire piece is always present. Whereas in, for example, the Maestro that I just talked about, or any other stock cable I review the song with, the shaker, yes, it's still always prominent, but it's notably quieter, and you really kind of have to listen to it, or listen for it, to really portray that sound. Now, when the Virtuoso, that is always notably there. Like it's like part of the actual song. It never goes away. So that ability of micro detail focusing is actually very impressive on the all-silver Virtuoso. Another example that really impressed me is the song Poe Lazarus by James Carter and the Prisoners. In addition to hearing the actual rocks, I don't know if, like in my written reviews or in my other YouTube reviews, I mentioned that in this song, on a top-tier IM and cable, you really have to listen for it in the background. There's a bucket that gets picked up. You can usually always hear the bucket, but very, very rarely can you hear the rocks that are inside kind of move about. That's a feat that very few can claim. However, what even more impressed me with this, and it's actually a sound that I completely forgot about until I heard it again, is around the 40-ish 5-second mark. Somewhere between 44 and I guess 48-second mark, somewhere in that range. And you do have to have at least a CD quality version of this song. YouTube has not ever reproduced this sound. It's very compressed, so bear with it. But around the 45-second mark, there's a very faint pick, or metal on metal sound that is heard. Like I said, it is a very subtle song or subtle piece that I have not heard on hardly any other cables than what's on here. So to hear that on a $150 cable is very impressive. So that shows how good of the micro details this piece can be. I guess I'll sum up my review or my opinion of the Virtuoso cable by mentioning the song. It's a piece I use a lot. It's called Fertility of the Sea, and it's performed by the Senzoku Gakuen College of Music from Japan. And what this song does, or rather what this cable does with this song, is it really shows off the transparency that the Maestro before it just couldn't quite come up with. Personally believe this is due to the Virtuoso's tuning towards detail retrieval, whereas the Virtuoso was much more musical sounding in comparison. The drums sounded incredible and hyper lifelike, especially when the performer's Daichi, I think it's called, hits the actual drum itself, not just the drum head. That resonance and just that wood-on-wood sound was very realistic. And through the Virtuosos, especially over the Maestros, not to tone them down, but just that detail that you get in the Virtuosos is something that is very impressive. Now, as mentioned, I also personally own another all-silver cable that I will compare the Effect Audio's Virtuoso to, and that is the BTG Audio Starlight cable. Now, to my knowledge, this cable is no longer, or rather, I don't think this company is no longer around. I tried to Google what they're going for. This cable is priced now, and the website was down. So at the time when I purchased this, I believe it was somewhere between $125 and $150 with what I had put on it. But directly comparing these two cables. So the analogy that I made earlier in this, in the Virtuoso review about how silver cables are usually known for toning down the bass while accenting the treble and micro detail, is definitely true and present with the BTG silvers. However, there is much less bass drop in the BTG Starlights than there is in the Virtuosos. However, the Virtuosos definitely possess that silver cable, prejudiced silver cable sound, how it's much, much more hyper detailed and micro detailed than the Starlight. When I listen to the same songs on each cable and go back and forth, there are several other details. Again, that little ping on Polazarus, popular example, you don't at all hear that on the silver cable. Additionally, that transparency, that lifelike sound of when the Daichi hits the drum is just not as magical on the Starlight as it is on the Virtuosos. Now, with that being said, moving on to the flagship of the Vogue line, and that is the copper-silver mesh cable, the Grandioso. So the Grandioso is their flagship product of the Vogue line, coming in at $200. And if you haven't already guessed it, the Grandioso takes the best of both worlds of the Maestro and the Virtuoso. Now, I will say that as soon as you put the Grandioso on, you do notice that the soundstage, the overall soundstage, is fairly narrower than what's on the Virtuoso. However, the micro detail is still very much present on the Grandioso as it was with the Virtuosos, as well as that drum's impact and its hit and its slam that was present on the Maestros is also here on the Grandiosos. They really did get both of those benefits, and what really sets these two apart and really mesh them into one really nice sounding cable. Now, with that note of the bass, however, though it is very much improved on over the Virtuosos, to my ears, the impact is still more present and even more enjoyable and impactful on the all-copper cable Maestros. They combined the best of the both worlds, but they didn't get all of it. I still think the overall transparency and micro-detailing is better on the Virtuosos than on here, and the bass and musicality is better on the Maestros than the Grandiosos. But if you put both of those positives together, I think that a very happy middle ground between these two is found in the Grandiosos. And also this cable is just visibly stunning. It's gorgeous to look at. So one thing I don't think I actually touched on is the actual mids. And the mids on the Grandioso do lean more towards the sounding of the Maestros, as in they're very full body, like the song Dear Agony by Kevin Stouts, if I'm saying his name correctly. There's a lot of emotion in this song, and you really get that when he sings it. I actually like his version better than the original, but that's neither here nor there. But between him singing it and just that emotion coming through, he just sounds so lifelike. Like, he might as well be singing to you in person through the Grandiosos, with just how just lifelike and how textured the mids are on both of these two IEM cables. Or like I said earlier in this, I do also have, just by sheer coincidence, a other copper mesh cable, and that was KN's YB04 cable that they included in their tour. Now, this is actually the stock cable that comes with the KN YB04. So comparing the two cables, you do see some construction differences, with the KN YB04 stock cable being a 8-strand cable versus the Grandioso's 4. Additionally, the terminations are a bit more robust versus the thinner aluminum Grandioso cables. However, in terms of just sound, and we'll just stick with that, the first and most immediate thing I notice is that the Grandioso's treble is significantly more accented than what KN's is. The airiness of the sound, the extension of the treble is significantly more accented and more present and more forward on the Grandioso than it is on the YB04 stock cable. Now, on the flip side of that, the bass on the YB04 cable is notably more impactful. There's a lot more resonance. There's more, in my opinion, speed and control on the YB04 cable than what's on the Grandioso. And the mids, to my ears, were exactly the same. The other positive I will give the Grandioso over the YB04 start cable is that, to me and my ears, I found that, or I heard that the soundstage was a little bit, not much, but on the Fertility of the Sea, He's a Pirate, the Hans Zimmer song, the overall soundstage and just overall instruments sounded a bit more spread out on the Grandioso than it did on the YB04 stock cable. So that is a takeaway that I took from the 3 cables I reviewed, but other 3 cables I compared to them. But in conclusion, Effect Audio really did a very respectable and commendable job for the amount of quality and craftsmanship that they put forth in their Vogue lineup, the Maestro, Virtuoso, and Grandioso. For those of you who are looking to accent your already favorite IM that you fell in love with, and you just want to get the most sound out of it, I really encourage you to at least look at these 3 cables and take what I'm saying in this review, or go with which type of sound you want to accent the most. If you want more of musicality, I definitely recommend you check out the Maestro. If you want more micro detail, more soundstage, I definitely recommend you look towards the Virtuoso. If you want an overall increase, like the best of both worlds, spend a little bit more money and you will be very satisfied, I personally believe, in the Grandioso cable. It is a fantastic place for you to start with. If you're looking into upgrading your cables, the amount of quality and craftsmanship and sound increase that you get is very respectable out of the Effect Audio's new Vogue line. But anyway, my friends, that is it for my review / comparison of Effect Audio's new Vogue series, the Maestro, Virtuoso, and Grandioso. If you have any questions, or if there's anything I may have missed that you would like me to clarify or go over more, please hit me up in the comments down below. I will absolutely read and reply to each and every one of you, and I do enjoy hearing or reading from you. I like hearing what your experiences is with cable. Yes, I hear all the time about cables are nothing but snake oil. It doesn't do anything. That very well may be your opinion, and it is completely okay to have that. There's nothing wrong with you not being able to hear, or to your ears you don't hear a difference in sound. However, to me, in my ears, I do hear a difference, and I do preach a good cable makes a lot of difference in sound. But anyway, my friends, as always, my name is Army-Firedawg. It has truly, truly been a pleasure, but most importantly, and please I ask of you, my friends, stay safe.